We're looking at Newark Liberty International Airport as we see air traffic moving again there. It was at a ground stop for quite some time there after a little bit of a blip in the skies tonight. JetBlue flight en route to West Palm Beach shortly after takeoff. One of the engines failed on board that flight. JetBlue telling us tonight that there was smoke in the cabin. There were crew members and customers evacuated using the aircraft slides once it returned back to Newark very shortly there. But these things happen, and they're more common than you think. Our aviation attorney joining us tonight, Dan Rose. Dan, thanks for coming on with us.
My pleasure.
If you could take me through a little bit, I think all of us, Dan, when we first hear an engine failed, whether we're on the ground or on that plane, you think, uh-oh, catastrophe, but not so. And you're here to ease everyone's fears.
Yes. The good news is that there's a reason all these planes have two. They used to have four engines, but two is sufficiently reliable, and it's for the redundancy. So it's very, very unlikely that historically that an engine fails. It's even very, very, very unlikely that two engines fail at the same time. So if you have the redundancy of one, that is a big safety margin and factor, and it's designed and built into the design of the aircraft. Just like there are two pilots, there's two hydraulic systems, there's two of everything on a plane just for this exact reason.
What is the pilot and the co-pilot doing in a situation like that? When is it the point? What happens when how do they know that one of the engines failed? And then what is their protocol? What do they need to do?
Oh, the first thing is they have a lot of training for this. This is probably one of the most emphasized emergency procedures that they would train for. They would get, depending on what the cause of the engine failure is. In this case, it seems it could be some kind of a catastrophic thing where, in other words, the engine is spinning around very rapidly, and if even if a blade fails a little bit inside the engine, it basically starts falling apart, tearing apart from the inside, and that's why you might apparently have gotten the smoke, which is the unusual part. But they would get warning lights in the cockpit and the flight deck, and they would. There are some items that they would memorize automatically, generally pull back the power, cut the fuel off to that engine. If it's on fire, there's a fire suppression system for each engine. But the real thing is they would work together, again, redundancy, to communicate, make sure they're turning off the right engine, because that has been a problem historically. When you have two engines, sometimes in the heat of it, flight crews have accidentally turned off the wrong engine, which is now a really big problem. But here they did everything seemingly by the book and landed. And again, except for the smoke in the cockpit, a lot of times some engines are shut down, as a precautionary measure. That's how safe and capable a plane these days is for flying on one engine. But this case, they apparently shut it down for an emergency and evacuated.
And an Airbus A320 like that. So how that plane can still fly with one engine, correct?
100%. Yeah.
But as a safety, but is it going to fly all the way to its destination with one engine? If it had to.
No, not all the way to its destination. Just because it's much less efficient, even though you're using, you only have one engine. It is not an efficient way to fly. You also can't fly as high on one engine as you can on two engines. So, but it has, more than enough, enough power and ability to fly to a safe destination. Even if you're going across the Atlantic, that's how the routes are planned, so that, if you're at the worst possible point in the flight, you lose an engine, you're still going to be able to make it to a divert airfield without any problem. So it's definitely part of the whole safety structure of redundancy and planning.
Protocol, what I mentioned before, if you're a passenger on board that plane, obviously the flight crew knows what's going on. Is that relayed to the passenger that an engine has failed, or do they just say that there's an emergency and we need to land the plane?
Yeah, it probably depends on the circumstances and the flight crew itself. A lot of times it'll just be so obvious. Maybe in this case, there was a catastrophic boom. We haven't heard anything yet, or smoke. So, You can't just say, oh, we're going to go back and get some more peanuts. So they would, in all likelihood, tell the passengers probably something along these lines that, we are experiencing an emergency, but the plane's designed to handle it, and everything's under control. We're going to shut down the engine and uh, land. And I think in that case, more information is better because I think it gives ultimately a sense of security to the passengers that they know that the flight crew knows what's going on and knows what they're doing.
And then I'm sure when you land, those slides are deployed to get those people out as fast as possible because of the risk of a fire or, some type of explosion. What do they worry with that?
Yeah. So again, in this case, given the fact that there was a report of smoke in the cabin, that does suggest some type of catastrophic or fire-related issue with the engine, which elevates it to a definitely an emergency situation. You want to get everybody off. There could be situations where the engine is just shut down as a precaution. Maybe the oil pressure was dropping, and in theory, you could probably taxi to the gate and not have to exit that way. But in this case, they didn't even want to clear the runway, which is why you had the shutdown at Newark, because there's a plane in the middle of the runway. So this was a little bit of an anomaly, and more of an aggravated or extenuating circumstance, but it was still well within the realm of manageability.
It seemed that way, I think, when we first saw all those first responders descending upon the plane. But that, again, it's all protocol. It's all part of it. And this is just how it goes. But it's more common, I would say, than you would think.
Yeah, it's literally better to be safe than sorry, and have all the fire vehicles out, the emergency vehicles out, the ambulance, just in case something terrible happens. And in this case, fortunately, that didn't happen, and everything went as much according to plan as possible.
Dan Rose, thank you so much for doing this and providing some insight for us today. I think easing everybody up a little bit so we don't, the next time you board a plane, you're not too worried about something like that happening.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. So we know, again, everyone on board JetBlue Flight 543 that left Newark on its way to West Palm Beach had to turn around because one of its engine failed. There was smoke in the cabin. We know that the flight crew, the customers on board that plane, according to JetBlue, the FAA, Port Authority, everybody is safe tonight, and the planes are moving again. We're